Hello builders! This is The Engine. I'm your host, Sasha Berry. The Engine is a show about building in crypto and with crypto. So whether you're already building in the space or you're just trying to figure out what this whole crypto, blockchain, Web3, on-chain thing is about, you're in the right place. Stick around because today we're talking about stablecoins, also known as the killer use case of crypto. We talk about why stablecoins are so important and how come you don't hear about them so much. We talk about different stablecoins, Tether's USDT, Circle's USDC, MakerDAO's DAI, and the newer one, Threshold DAO's THUSD. All of them are pegged to US dollar, meaning they represent US dollar on chain, yet they all compete, which is fascinating because it's US dollars competing against US dollars, not even other currencies. Amazing stuff. So we talk about how is it possible that not all stablecoins are created equal. We talk about how they can compete. We talk about specifically the importance of user experience in the onboarding process of newer users into crypto and into stablecoins. And of course, we talk about the potential futures of stablecoins and the role that CBDCs may play in that future. And there are some hot takes on the subject from my guests. And my guests are Evandro Saturnino, who is a developer with Threshold DAO, who for the last 2 years has been responsible for developing user experience for THUSD, the Threshold's new stablecoin. My other guest is Vinijtrongjit, who is the co-founder and the CEO of Sakura Labs. Sakura Protocol is a consumer-centric layer 2 blockchain with 0 transaction fees. And my third guest is Landon, who is a sole developer of Taffy, a gasless decentralized exchange that has recently launched on the Sakura blockchain. And we'll get right into my conversation with them. But first, a quick word about the core contributors to the Engine's first season, Threshold Network and Build Cities. Threshold Network provides a suite of threshold cryptography services. So if you're building an application that involves private data and trusting an intermediary won't fly, you may want to check out Taco, which is the only encryption and access control plugin that is end-to-end decentralized. So what is Taco for? Builders are using it in various applications such as seed phrase recovery, crypto inheritance, media libraries management, and even concealing in-game assets. And these are just some of the use cases. You can use Taco to build a decentralized password manager or location sharing plugin, or even a live streaming platform, or any other dApp that involves private data. So go to threshold.network, check out Taco documentation, and see how you can easily integrate that plugin into your dApp. Build Cities is a global cooperative of startup cities. The world is changing rapidly. Resources and expertise that are so needed to create businesses and innovation used to be locked into certain ecosystems for centuries. But now, these resources are flowing freely around the world, empowering local communities. Passports and visas may still limit our ability to travel, but we can teleport anywhere over Zoom and collaborate with our partners all over the world. Build Cities is creating a digital infrastructure that empowers this collaboration and innovation and connects builders from all over the world. Check out their website and see how in this new world, Lagos is not far from Los Angeles and London, and Nassau is right next to Phuket and Paris. You can join the community right now with your Discord login. You can also mint a Dream, which is a collaborative AI NFT that serves as a pass to the entire Build Cities ecosystem, including all of their IRL events throughout the year around the country. The link is in the description. The Engine is powered by Skylamp, a community of Web3 builders. Between ourselves, we often describe it as AA for founders, except for we're not trying to quit being founders, quite the opposite. We're trying to stick with it. And it's always better with a friend. But it's even better when it's a community of friends who are there to support you, to give you feedback, to test your product and tell you the truth, to give you a shout out on Twitter. and just be there for you through ups and downs of this insane industry. So if that's something that you're looking for as a builder, check out skylab.xyz. The membership is free, but it's invitation only. So fill out the form and someone will reach out to you. The link is in the description. And now, let's get into my conversation with Evandro, Jack, and Jack.
The engine is here, and we are talking about stablecoins, another gigantic topic that we're going to try to grasp and break down and introduce. And as always, before we get into the depths and weeds of all of this, quick intros, and please tell me what brought you guys into crypto and what specifically was that moment, that light bulb moment that made you realize that's it, I'm in, that makes sense, this is the future. Evandro, do you wanna kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So basically I have been working with like the crypto industry for 6 or 7 years already. Have been working like basically with Web2 before that. So basically I am a front-end developer from formation. So I worked with like Web2 industry with SaaS and so on. Got involved like in crypto in 2000, back in 2017. Was really engaged within the Keep Network community. Since then, like I worked in some different companies. So I worked with Elastic DAO, Elastic Swap, for example, as a front-end developer. Worked as a freelancer as well, like for example for Fox Foundation with Shapeshift, Cantodex as well. And for the past like 2 years and a half, I would say I have been working with the Threshold network, mainly on what concerns the Threshold USD project. So basically, I was like responsible for like spearheading the entire like UI UX of the app itself from the past like 2 years and a half, as I said. And right now, like I'm currently working as a full stack developer within the Threshold network DAO. And like talking about your question, specifically saying about like the light bulb moment, I think that there wasn't one, like a single moment. It was a myriad of things that caught my attention within the industry in terms of the technological aspect of it. But of course, like I thought that like I would say that the moment that the river crossed for me was like the moment that I was like called to work on a company, a cryptocurrency company. Then I started kind of involving myself with it, like how it works. Started interacting with some libraries like Ether.js and so on. And yeah, I pretty much like very, very much work with it, and I want to like keep going working with Web3 because I really enjoy working with it. So yeah, so it's pretty much like about it.
So for you, it was mostly about technology and loving how the technology works.
Yes, yes. Like the first thing
Got
that
it.
called, yeah, like when I got myself like involved with Keep Network company, like back in 2017, the technological aspect of it, like the fact that it was bringing like cryptography services in a decentralized manner, like caught my attention very, very much, and I just wanted to engage with the community. So I like reach out to the team members in order for me to get myself as a moderator and so on. So I just started involved with it, but of course, like the technological aspect of it, like caught my attention for sure as the first thing.
That's awesome. Jack, Landon, do you want to introduce us into your crypto story and what was the light bulb moment for you?
Yeah, sure. So, in 2017, I was starting businesses left, right, and center, doing like small WordPress things, and I was all in on WordPress and no code, staunchly no code. And then, the sort of what got me into crypto was actually just a guide telling me about it, and I
But what kind of
obviously got
businesses
everything.
were those? What was
They
the
were
what was the
just like Uber of X sort of thing, like ride sharing for charter flights, things like
okay.
that.
Okay.
And just like, affiliate stuff. Um, But what got me into crypto was I was doing a bit of investing, and banks would just sort of gaslight you into protecting yourself, as in you can't do this because of your protections. And I just thought it was ridiculous, and I seemed to be getting uh, all of the investments I had that were technically above board in the legacy world were not being protected by the regulations that are sort of supposed to be there. So that's what got me into crypto. But the DeFi was really the light bulb moment. That's what made me want to start developing, and so I just went all in on learning how to do smart contracts, and then from that went the front end and the game theory, and haven't really looked back since. Hey, so here
Wow.
we are
And
4 years later.
so you just got into coding, you taught yourself to code, or what
Yeah,
happened? So you
I
were
think
no code before, and
I mean, I got interested into game theory, and then I was like, I didn't have the money to pay for developers, so it sort of was a means to an end. And good thing I enjoy it so much, you just sort of stick with it.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you want to do it, if you want to get it done well, do it yourself. Sometimes that
Exactly.
is true. Not always, but sometimes it is true. Yeah, I've had similar experiences with design and editing where I just hire one editor, another editor, and I'm like, no, I'm just gonna do it
Yeah.
myself. I'm gonna suffer. I'm gonna suffer and do it myself. Totally get that. But with DeFi, it was the light bulb moment. But what specifically about DeFi was it that made you understand that yes, that's what it is. That's the future.
It was the no signups. I can do a swap in 2 seconds. I can do anything without having to get to get like all these people to approve it, to show my ID, to do this, to do that. It
So the
just I think it was just so
permissionlessness.
easy. Yeah, the permissionlessness of it.
Got it. Got it. Well, yeah, I guess that's part of it for all of us, the decentralization, the permissionlessness.
I
Um,
think hearing about Pull Together was also a cool one. It's just like a no loss lottery. Just those sorts
mm,
of things, those mechanisms. It was like, oh, yeah, that you can't do that in the real world.
why so? Why so pull together is can you break it down real quick?
It's basically just, well, it's basically a savings account, but uh, all of the
Interesting
interest would get
comparison.
rewarded to one person. Essentially,
It's like a lottery, right?
well, it's a
With all the
lottery,
stakes.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
virtually, it's just like forcing you to save. You're not losing anything.
And why would that not be possible in, I mean, technically a bank could say, oh, so there's, some yield this week. We will send it to a random client.
I mean, maybe they. I haven't seen anything
No,
like
they
that.
don't do
Perhaps
that.
they do that. No, I think it'd be
No,
kind of
never heard
cool
of
if they
that.
did though. Like opt into that. Maybe I
Right?
should. Maybe I should nudge them. Hey, you should do this.
Totally, totally. I mean, they will find out, but in 15 years, and they'll be like, oh,
Yeah,
that's a new marketing and customer success technology that we're going to integrate. Um,
but it.
Yeah. Maybe it could be like Office Space where you take all the fraction and put them together and one lucky person will take it. I
yeah,
mean, that
there
could
you
work.
go. But yeah, it's not that technologically it's necessarily impossible. It's just, I guess that mentality is not there. And of course, in decentralized world, we can verify that that money was actually sent to that person. Um,
Yeah.
so there's that. Um, so Jack, last but not least, what was your light bulb moment? What brought you into crypto?
So for me, it's kind of like a very long journey. I have always been in tech. I mean, actually, before tech, I was in more in politics. and then I had to send my sister to go to college. And I was like, politics doesn't pay, so I had to focus on tech. But I mean, similar to Jack, I have always been doing some random things in the past, right? Since I was like 15, 16, I started teaching myself the code. I started like doing website. I wrote a system for a warehouse. I wrote a library system, a lot of random things. And then it was really when I had to send my
Wow.
sister to go to school. And I got really worried, right? Because she's like the first female to go to person in my family to go
Wow.
to college, for example. So I was like, okay, need to do something. And then it kind of went from there. So I spent about 5 years in doing a lot of tech consulting. And then I've been in startup scene for about 14 years now.
I appreciate you sharing that you had to change your personal journey to support your sister because she would be the first woman in your family to go to college. How did it happen that you would become the person who had to support her?
I mean, there's all this uncertainty, right? And especially because she's also studying abroad. I'm from Thailand originally, and economy. I mean, back in like '97, for example, when the Asian crisis, when everything collapsed, right? And it kind of built on from there. So it's just that I feel like if there's no like backup kind of income from someone else in the family, right? Because like my family, they're doing quite well. I mean, being stuck, and also they've been never actually worked for anyone. Like my parents, they started 8 different businesses, failed 7. The last one kind of took off a little bit, right? But they still are too uncertain. So I was like, there has to be a backup. So basically, I took an opportunity, and the reason I went into consulting also is because I mean, I'm pretty good at dealing with people, right? And I was definitely not that tech heavy at all. And it was actually quite interesting because my first interview, I just talked about how I organize all this very big party, and that's how I got past my first interview. So, and then I was like, oh shit, I better study up a little bit, right? And then be talk a little more technical. So I went to my second interview. I almost didn't get a job because then they were like, you all of a sudden became too technical, right? And then I wouldn't know how to deal with clients. So it
So
kind of ended up
here's the
working out.
importance of
But
soft
yeah,
skills, right?
it's quite
Even
interesting.
in the technical world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's quite kind of why I think I fit in quite well in Web3 as well, right? I mean, so I started in 2011. So my boss back then, who's now my current
Wow.
VP of engineering, basically was like, hey, let's do some Bitcoin mining, right, on our laptop. So back
Right.
then you can still mine on your laptop, and you're getting like
Oh my
0.2
God.
Bitcoin a day or something like that. So and then we were mining it on our test server and just let it run. And then I mean, after 4 years, our intern decided to sell the server to a startup, and I don't even know what was on the server. But then it's really when in 2000, it was 2016, 2017, I think, then when I start pay a lot more attention on the tech side, right? So because my friends start asking me to analyze some of the tech on like all these different consensus mechanism and all these things. So I was very curious, and it's quite interesting because like when I jump in, it's like this large community that anyone kind of pull into their heads together, like, hey, is this like good technology? Is it a good investment opportunity and all these things? So I was part of probably 7 or 8 different syndicates, and then but the reason I really end up coming in was because my co-founders, 2 co-founders actually of Sakura Labs, that they wanted to start something in GameFi, right? So that was back in the Axie Infinity time, and so one of them was managing OTC for me, and then also was managing asset for my friend, who also another co-founder, right? And they were like, hey, looks like you have $22,000 in the account, can we borrow it? And for what? So they're like, they want to start a guild, right? And I was like, what the hell is a guild? I had no ideas, right? I'm not really that big of a gamer also back then, so I didn't know anything. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, we had a 150 person team. And then I was like, okay, you guys really suck at math, so let me like help figure out the formula. So I basically kind of helped them figure out how to make everything more optimized. And then 4 weeks later, we had 1,500 people in the team. So it kind of went from there.
And hold on, so what were all of those people doing?
They were playing games. It was Axie Infinity, right?
So it was a huge Axie Infinity farm.
Exactly, right? But the way we did things...
Where is it now? What's happening?
We still have about 1,000 people. What? But the way we did it back then was because we were trying to help people. So 56% of the people in the guild were unemployed, right? About 30% of them also, they had their family in the hospital. They didn't have money to pay for medical bill. So we were prioritizing on those types of people who were in trouble financially to come in, and they were playing game, and they were getting paid like about 8 times average income, right? So and from then, basically, I knew that we had to build some technology, right? But for me to really stick in this industry, it's kind of interesting because I've been in tech, I've been in startup for a long time. Whenever we wanted something, we build it ourselves, right? That's the Web2 mentality. In Web3, you just build all these small things and you work with another team, and then you kind of pull all these things together. So it's just completely modular, and it's a much, much more interesting, and I would say more efficient, probably even more optimized in how you build things as well, right? Because you just collaborate in general, right? For example, I'm definitely not a DeFi expert like Jack and Evandro, for example, right? But I can wrap something around that protocol that they build that's really, really good and build something on top, right? You can see restaking, you see all these different technology. Like this kind of thing you don't see in Web2. It's like you talk, when Jack was mentioning about banks and all this potential like lottery system, right? If people want to build this like a lottery thing on top of bank, the bank like, hell no, right? Because they have to protect their licenses and all these things. So I think building things more community-centric side of the Web3 is what really got me to stay, right? It's just is very interesting, especially when I came from Web2 for like
right.
the past
20, I love that you bring
years.
that up, and we always say that came for money, stayed for tech, but really came for money and stayed for friends. And personally, I came from film industry into crypto, and definitely I did not expect this industry to be so friendly and collaborative, where filmmakers always talk about how filmmaking is a very collaborative art form, but really it's a bunch of egos and a bunch of little dictators, each in their project. Whereas in crypto, people actually, because the industry is so much smaller and we are in this survival phase, I think that's partially the reason why we're so friendly and supportive of each other, and just we believe that rising tide brings up all ships, and we want that tide to rise. And it's interesting that each of you has a very different journey, but mostly through finance or tech you came into crypto. And this has been, for the most part, a common thread for people getting into crypto in the previous cycles. It seems like just the cycle of 21, 22 that started bringing in people who came in through gaming. Games like Axie onboarded millions of people. And now there are more and more different use cases with NFTs and real world assets now, and all the other things that we're starting to see in the space, and social fi that is starting to become a thing and an interesting thing. People are getting in through different things, but early on it was either very technical or very financial, and didn't have much of a space for entrance for anyone who didn't really get it that way. But we're talking about stablecoins, and of course, stablecoins have been around for quite a long time, but still are evolving as many versions of crypto. And people, when people say crypto, they often mean just cryptocurrencies, and they don't necessarily differentiate. I was listening to this, New York Times, you guys have to do better. They were saying that some cryptocurrencies define themselves as collectibles. And I was like, oh my God, this is just so wrong in so many ways. It's not crypto. Obviously, they were talking about NFTs, but NFTs are not a currency. So there's so much confusion about what crypto is and can be, and of course, it can be so many different things. So today we're focusing on stablecoins, which is a very odd thing for crypto, because it's sort of the opposite of crypto in a way. So, Evandro, do you want to give us a quick basic definition of what stablecoins are and why we need them?
Okay. Well, so basically there are like different types of stablecoin. There are the ones which we like know since the beginning, as you were mentioning, like for example, those more centralized one that can be considered like, for example, USDC or USDT. There are that are basically like ERC20 tokens contracts that are backed by real life funds. So basically, they are managed by companies that basically manages existing funds in order to back this token. So basically, there is like this backing asset that provides the peg or maintains the peg of the stablecoin. But yeah, there is also a different type of stablecoin that surged upon, like for example, the creation of DAI, which is like a stablecoin from MakerDAO, and it basically like provided a new kind of a way of creating or derivating a stablecoin, which is by a decentralized way. And by saying that is that like there are mechanisms on which, like for example, Jack mentioned that is a very like interesting discussion, because that's why like it's called like money legal, you know, because there are contracts that has this kind of license like MIT license that provides like a way for users to be reusing it. And that's the way, like for example, MakerDAO like created this whole kind of mechanism in order to maintain the peg of a stable coin in a decentralized way, because it like provided a way for users to deposit their collaterals into a system that has this kind of CDP or collateralization ratio embedded into it. And that's how like the inner core vision that Liquidity derivated their protocol as well, which is like a project that enabled like a new kind, whole new kind of generation of stable coins, which is also decentralized, but also I would say that it's totally permissionless and trustless. Like it provides a way for users to also like mint their stablecoin in a totally decentralized way by like simply depositing their collateral into a vault, and then like it would work algorithmically and automatically based into certain parameters that for example, in liquidities work as a 110% of collateral ratio, in which we have like derivated our own protocol. So basically like Threshold USD in its core, it has been like derivated from a liquidities fork. And of course, like we have like built on top of it like several different like features that can be seen as a differentiation of our protocol. And yeah, so basically this is like a very kind of general perspective of what a stablecoin is. And the reason why I would say like in a market perspective is that like people would like to have like a way for them to secure their funds. So for example, they are like interacting with DeFi, like providing funds for the different kind of protocols or different kind of dynamics, and a way of them to like be securing their funds within this whole system is to like invest or to buy like a stable coin and use them for passive incomes and so on. So this is like a very well-known like usage for stablecoins in DeFi in a general perspective.
That's awesome. Thank you for giving us this overview. Uh, Jack, do you want to add anything about uh, what are the important what is the value of stable coin? Because I mean, we have dollars. Why do we need stable coins?
I mean, we need it because it's much harder to move dollars, right? Like Jack said earlier, I mean, he trying to do something with the bank, and the bank can say like you can't do this, right? With stablecoin, it's just much more seamless and much more permissionless, right? So you can move money faster. And then, I mean, these days it's also, I mean, even from the trader perspective, right? It's like it's a safe asset you can fall back to. If you see that the market is very volatile and you want to get out, I mean, you can go back to stablecoin. You'd have to get out all the way to fiat, right? And then you can use something else. And I also believe that the only way to really spend in using crypto, I mean, is that to actually use stablecoin. It just doesn't make sense to spend using other assets because, I mean, the merchants, they become a risk for merchants, right? Because when they accept all these different non-stable coin, all this cryptocurrency, the price could fluctuate. And by the time you're able to cash out, maybe it's already gone down to like, I don't know, 50% sometime when the market crashes. So technically, it's always get liquidated at the point of sales, which is also not good for that currency, right? So I think stablecoin is definitely that medium that really can get a lot of people in from Web2 side. And these days with the self-yield stablecoin, like the Mountain Protocol USD, for example, you can just hold it and then you don't even have to stake and you can earn like almost 5% from the T-bill, right? With all these other UA projects. So there's definitely more variety now. And I think, I mean, you cannot have crypto without stablecoin. I don't think it'll work, at least not now, right? I mean, in the future, when more and more people use Bitcoin and Bitcoin become that main currency, I mean, if ever will become that main currency, then I can see maybe that take over. But I think that will be another like 10,
Right,
20
but
years away.
even then,
least.
I guess there is an argument to be said that people, as the value of Bitcoin grows and as it becomes probably less volatile as it matures as an asset, maybe we will want to have more payments, even though we celebrated Bitcoin Pizza Day last week, right? And in today's money, these two large pizzas cost $700 million. So that's a reminder of how far we have come as an industry on one side, but on the other side about the value of stable coins, because with these assets we may not necessarily want to use these assets as a medium of payment. So Jack, Landon, do you have any contribution there and any take there on the importance of stable coins for our industry or for the world?
I mean, if you're pretty interested in gains, the printing of the USDT seems to be a nice way to sort of boost the market when you want it to be boosted, right?
How
This
so?
unelected, well, I mean, this sort of, I mean, no one really knows what's behind it. It turns on and buys a crap ton of Bitcoin, and you don't really know when it's going to turn off or turn on. So, I mean, it's helpful in that regard for the gains.
Well, it's helpful for the gains, not necessarily helpful for stability,
No,
even though it is a stable coin.
I mean, of course, yeah. I mean, stablecoins obviously have the properties of being stable, but also that seems to be something that I overlooked for a while. I was like, USDT is going down. It's going to take all the cryptos down with it. Yada yada yada. And I thought that for a while, and it's like, maybe not. Maybe it's
Why
an
did you
odd
change your
blessing
mind?
from.
Why did you change your mind?
I don't think I've necessarily entirely changed my mind, but do we think that USDT is going away?
It doesn't look that way. Evandro, it looks like you have a take. I feel like you have a take there.
Yeah, in fact, like one thing that I would like to mention about that is that I believe that the market isn't like shaped on top of a single stablecoin. You know, like I think that, like, for example, if we see a catastrophic kind of scenario where like USDT would lose its peg, which is possible due to the nature, like the very nature of a centralized kind of institution, I believe that the market will be able to innovate itself, because we have already like decentralized this stablecoin for that purpose. So the peg of those decentralized stablecoin would like be maintained by itself. Like for example, the equities market, or how can I say, like protocol has endured very well on all these years. So it has been like pretty much like battle tested already. So even in a catastrophic scenario where we can like think that like USDC can lose its peg, affect like DAI, because as like we know, like DAI is maintained by USDC value, it would be affected as well. But others, the stablecoin, like decentralized the stablecoin, would still be like around, would still keep or maintain the very purpose of it, and then like DeFi would be able to innovate and to learn with its own lesson, and it would be, in my perspective, a step going forward in the decentralized kind of world, because it would be another thing that we will learn from the mistakes of having like a centralized kind of institution to manage funds to maintain a peg of a stable
Right.
coin. So yeah, it would be like the next step, like kind of moving forward. I suppose, if like this kind of scenario would like come into reality.
Jack, were you going to
Yeah,
say
I
something?
mean
Jack?
I think that's inevitable, and I think that's the end goal. I just think in the early stages of crypto, it has probably helped pump price.
Well, it's
If we want to
interesting
be
that,
very crass about it.
well, there's so many different things that pump the price. Can you just quickly walk us through the mechanic of that pumping of the price?
Well, there's no regulation on how it's printed. So
You mean
what's
Tether,
stopping you from
USDT?
Tether? So what's stopping them from printing to infinity and just buying up anything that's being sold? I mean, that's kind of what they did, and to some degree, right?
Yeah, I mean, back in the days, that's what they were accused of, right? But these days, they get audited so frequently that I feel like there's probably less of that, right? So now, I mean, just like any stablecoin company, like for example, Circle, 25% of their income come from USDC, right? From the interest rate, for example, and then the rest come from the technology. And I know I always thought that running a stablecoin company, especially the centralized one, is actually one of the easier things, right? Because if you just don't screw up or like try to do something sketchy, then I mean you keep earning even 1% of the 100 billion that they hold. That's enough to run any business, right? But of course, these guys, they're all kind of all ambitious. They want to have all this different technology. Same with Circle as well. They basically want to become the like Amazon of Web3, for example, right? So then they go into all these different directions. But I mean, I think stablecoin. That there's also a different level of like regulated stablecoin as well, right? And if you talk to like, for example, Mountain Protocol, they would say that they're probably the most regulated and like the most compliant. And then it goes down to maybe USDC and then of course USDT, right? But I think that problem will be solved because I hope that they realize that there is no point of not do business properly with stablecoin. It just doesn't make sense.
Who who
And
they?
that's why I
Who
think the
are they
problem
in
of
that
the problem of
sentence?
trust. I did like Tether or like Circle or anyone who issue stablecoin, right? Like Paxos, for example. So I think the issue of trust will go away. I think for these stablecoin, at least the main ones, right? But then again, there's certain level of control there, right? Because you still can on ramp certain amount that you want, or when you off ramp, you have to do KYC. So now it become issue with privacy, it become issue with restriction. I mean, and if you take a look at that contract, they can literally freeze anyone's token, anyone's stablecoin, right? So now again, the trust might not be on whether it's actually pegged to certain like dollars, for example, but the trust now is that hey, if they think I do something wrong, even though I don't think I did something wrong, they can still freeze my asset, right? And that's why I think decentralization and all these other stablecoin like DAI come in, because there's no single entity that will go and freeze your asset
So
if they want to.
did I understand you correct? Tether can freeze your stable coins? I did not know that.
Yes. And then if you talk about like the PayPal stablecoin, they can
Well,
actually burn your
PayPal
stablecoin
is a
also.
whole separate. Yeah. I mean, yes, sure, but come on. But it looks like these centralized and fiat collateralized stable coins are almost like banks, almost like what we were trying to get away from. They are these intermediaries. And it's one thing where, okay, we trust them to maintain the peg, but it's a whole different thing where all of a sudden we realize that we trusted them to hold our asset or have some sort of not custody but power over our asset. And so what is it that our industry is creating? And Tether is, to be clear, the main stable coin currently in the market. They hold about 80%. And most of that value is not in the US and not in Europe. It's mostly developing countries and Asia. And that kind of is overlapping with that question of like, why do we need stablecoins? Like less developed economies where people come into crypto as the alternative financial system, whereas in the advanced economies, people come to crypto to degen and get advantage. And try to get ahead. We have these decentralized crypto collateralized stable coins, but how can we take over? How can we move ahead of Tether?
I believe that it's for one sense in an aspect of this discussion. I believe it's a matter of narrative. In other sense, of course, I don't believe that this should prevail. Like not only a matter of narrative, but this is something that is existing into the market. But in my perspective, this is basically like one of the main reasons why it's important to have, like, for example, immutable contract. You know, let's put into perspective, like, for example, Threshold USD contracts. We have like immutable contracts, so people can verify our contracts. They will be able to see that we don't have like any kind of blacklist, you guys were like talking about, like, for example, USDT. We are already aware that there is such a list of a blacklist that they can simply put like any kind of address there, and that's it. Your funds would be freezed on that sense. So this is the main importance of having immutable contracts. And like going back onto the narrative thing that I was talking about, like people have this kind of decentralized ethos, and they are understanding that, but this shouldn't be taken lightly only as a narrative matter of fact. But we saw like what happened with Luna, for example. You know, we saw what happened with other cases as well. So decentralization do not come only for a matter of like a standard or a banner, but rather for security by itself. You know, people can get secured, get people can like simply verify their contracts and be act as his or she's like kind of like own bank. You know, you can be yourself bank, and you can like manage your own funds, verify the contracts that you are interacting with, be aware that you wouldn't be like freezed out or anything like that, or even like be required to pass through a KYC. So this is why it's basically important to have like permissionlessness and trustlessness embedded into the protocol's core. And this is what we are currently running away from, like those kind of approaches that centralized kind of institutions have towards their products and services. And this is what basically we are going after with threshold cryptography services. So yeah, this is what it does
That's
matter.
awesome. And then, of course, it's very It's very real. This difference is very real, and very, the consequences of that difference are very real. But it is, as you said, it's a different. It's harder to deliver that narrative to a broad audience, and so that's one of the things that are always hard about crypto, explaining why is it valuable for it to be permissionless, why is it so important that it's decentralized. And that is sort of a broader question for our industry. But with stable coins, it's very it's very at the core of what the decentralized stable coins are. Self custody and understanding of that and the importance of that is complex. And Tether right now is, on a bunch of people, on a bunch of businesses all over the world. They have their brand logo there, and people can pay with Tether or make a deposit in Tether, and it's right there and it's easy, and they're like, oh, it's like dollar. And there's, in people's minds, that brand is ingrained, starting to get ingrained. Of course, there's many more millions of people that can be onboarded, and for sure that can be changed. How do we get people to understand that difference?
The thing is, I don't know if people care enough, actually, right? I mean, if they have a way to pay, because even something like USDC is solved certain problem already, right? The friction of like cross-border transfer, or even like large amount transfer, for example, right? Because typically you cannot transfer more than $10,000 without having to report and all these things. Or if you run international business, I mean, bank these days, because of AML requirement, before you receive any fund, regardless of the amount, if it's come from international source, so you have to report the source, then you report the amount. If the amount is wrong, it bounces back, right? Like part of our business, which is it's what we call cycle cashback. So we actually have to accept about 4 or 5 currencies from all these different networks, right? And it's actually an impossible problem, because by the time that we try to withdraw, like let's say I report the bank that about $100 will come to the bank, right? The problem is the system, if there's people keep spending, we keep earning more and more, right? So by the time, let's say I'm trying to go and withdraw, it's now $105, which now no longer match with the bank, what we report to the bank.
Oh God.
Then it will bounce. So it's such a stupid problem that I don't know why it exists these days. But this kind of issue will never happen with stablecoin, right? Because you don't have to do all this reporting. It's just much more seamless. If I want to transfer money, I can do it. Like my friend company, for example, so she outsourced most of her work to Vietnam, right? And the company is based in Texas, and they completely switched to pay in stablecoin because it was such a hassle paying all these developers, right? You would think these days so easy to do international transfer,
Yeah,
but not really, right? And more requirements coming in and all these things, and that's why I think just even people switching to stablecoin, it already provide a lot of benefits. But then as you use it more and more, you start thinking about, again, different level of trust, right? And like, can they freeze my asset if I do something wrong? Or they accuse me of something before I'm even found guilty, right? So then that's when people might start going to the more decentralized stablecoin, because then you have control of your asset. No one can do anything to your asset, right? So I think it's just a natural progression, but at least getting people in first. All these like mainstream stablecoin is definitely
so you
essential.
feel that we should still have all these centralized and mainstream.
It will take time, right? I mean, because the country like Sweden, where they literally don't have they have fiat currency, but it's all digital, right? There's no physical money anymore. So if every country kind of starts switch to that direction, then it's pretty much,
Yes.
so that is more like CBDC, right? Basically, they still have control. They can still can block you from,
Yeah.
let's say, transfer a large amount. You need to get permission, right? So that's kind of more like CBDC type. And then, but the difference between this digital money versus CBDC is that at least CBDC is trackable, right? It's on chain, for example. So that progression may be from digital money to CBDC to stablecoin to decentralized stablecoin. I think it will get there, but again, jumping for all the way to decentralized stablecoin, I don't know if that's for everyone, because in the end, you still need to have the way to on ramp and to on ramp to a completely decentralized stablecoin. I don't even know how that works, right? Because you have to do KYC so you can get in. So you might have all these regulated centralized stablecoin as a medium, as an entry point. And from then on, you can explore your route to get to the
That is
more
very interesting
decentralized
that
side of
you said
stablecoin.
that you feel like this progression can go from CBDC to centralized stablecoin to decentralized stablecoin, because I feel that most of the industry is sort of fearing the CBDC as something that would stop that progression from even happening and us ever getting to decentralized. Because if people get the convenience of centralized payment system that is just digital, and most people, similar to how we are on the internet, I'm not doing anything criminal, I don't mind being watched, fine, watch me pay, I don't care. And so many would say, hey, CBDC will just and we'll end there and that there will be no progression there.
Yeah, I mean, this to me, still CBDC and fiat are basically the same thing, right? I mean, they already have control.
Right.
It's just different medium. That's all, right? And then, I mean, go from fiat. I mean, with fiat, the problem with fiat is that if
Yes.
it's physical money, there's no way you can track, right? But now it just become more trackable. That's all, right? And then like there was one thing that they did in France, right? Like you want to transfer a certain amount. I believe they was it on Ethereum or something, and the approval itself was
Right.
costing so much money that it didn't make any sense, right? So, but I don't like personally, I don't see that big of a problem with CBDC, because it's basically the same as digital money we currently use. That's why I think it's just become more transparent, right? It's much more trackable. But then again, once you get there, then going from there to stablecoin, I think is actually an easier thing for people to understand. But again, it can also jump from fiat to just stablecoin, right? There may not be any need for CBDC. But for me, like cash need to go at some point.
That's an interesting thing, because that's something that is, I mean, obviously cash has been around for hundreds, I mean, thousands of years for sure, in some ways, in different ways. And we have shaped certain ideas about how cash works, and privacy is one of those big aspects of what cash gives. Evandro, Jack, Landon, do you have any takes on this idea of progression from CBDC to getting to decentralization there?
Yeah, like in my perspective, the way I see is that like for us to kind of provide a way or to ease this kind of progression is a challenge that every developer has, in like at least every developer that works with Web3 has, which is basically how to decrease the technological kind of barrier. Because right now, like considering Threshold USD for example, we are still under a very kind of initial kind of stage. So people would still have this kind of learning curve to go with, to go on. So people would still have to like read the docs, understand how the protocol works in order for them to deposit their collateral and so on and so on, to create a vault that would be like above the 100% collateral ratio. So yeah, we are in this initial stage. So there is this kind of initial learning curve to go on. But our main challenge, like as a whole, is how to decrease the barriers, how to make the UI UX being the most accessible for people for that aren't like that tech savvy. And this go like beyond that, like this go beyond only the stable coin kind of discussion, but goes through like decentralized exchange, goes to wallets as well. Like this should be shortened. How people can simply look in using their wallet, how people can like get access to a simple stable coin by just clicking a button, and that's it. Like, because there are different kinds of users that we should be considering on. There are those that are more interested in the protocol aspect, but there is the vast majority of people that don't have like any knowledge at all, and then they don't want to have any knowledge on how the protocol works. So they should get like access to the stablecoin, like decentralized stablecoin in a easy way, or the most easy way as possible. And we have this kind of challenge to work on, and we should have this in mind when we create our apps. Not only apps, but also the money Lego as a whole. Like, we should like pave the way for those that aren't tech savvy to get like access to those like most sophisticated kind of
Yeah.
technology.
Well,
What's
yeah, go ahead, Jack.
what's blocking you at Threshold for your stablecoin? Like, if you think of the perfect scenario, is there anything that's blocking you technologically?
I wouldn't say like blocking, because as I said, like right now we are currently under a very initial stage. So right now we could argue that there isn't like much liquidity into the space. So this is like a kind of a blocker, not a technological one, but definitely a blocker, because there would be like only specific kind of protocols that people would get access to THUSD, specifically saying, for example, Curve. So we are actively working toward that. Like, we are actively working to get like the token itself like more available in different layers, the token itself like with the most liquidity as possible. So we are working on like getting incentives in order to push that forward, and so on. But like, talking about the ultimate game would be like for the people to be able to get access to THUSD directly in their wallets. Like, for example, as you may know, like for example, Thesis, which is like the controlling company of Threshold, like at least one of the arms that controls Threshold, like they own like a Tally wallet. So, and they have this kind of pursue embedded into their company, because there is like Tally wallet, and Tally is trying to provide like a way for people to have like access to those different assets directly into their wallet, and not only talking about the stable coin, but also like how to earn like passive income out of it, and so on. So this should be facilitated for those that aren't tech savvy. Like, they should like be able to connect their wallet, be able to like earn passive income just by clicking a button, and that's it. Because there are people that work with different areas that doesn't have, or don't want to have like the enough kind of knowledge to know what's happening under the hood, on what concerns like how the
So
product
you feel
works.
that the main challenge with onboarding more people into decentralized stablecoins is sort of twofold. On one side, it's the onboarding process itself, the UI and UX of getting into it. And then the second part is that for many decentralized stablecoins, there isn't too many use cases or too many available protocols or ways to play with it, really. And so then, like, how do you get in, and then what do you do with it? And both those things are still being built out. Is that kind of accurately describing the challenge right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would say
And
so, for
so
sure.
then, let's say in 2, 3, 5 years, we overcome that challenge and we have a very smooth and easy onboarding process. Hopefully, we do that sooner. And then we have integrated these decentralized USDC is integrated in 1,000 different protocols. You can do whatever you want with it. Um, how do you feel it would be competing with, what do you compete on with other stable coins?
Like you say, like among themselves, like different stable coins.
Yeah, like
Is that
we're,
what you
because
mean?
THUSDC is one of them. There's DAI, there's Tether is still going to be around.
Yeah.
and they have very easy onboarding process. They have a bunch of applications already. So now you start competing, but how do you compete? How do you get yourself out there? I know that you're a developer, and it's not necessarily a fair
Well,
question to you. Like you're building the UX, yeah, that's your part. But
this is a very interesting kind of question. One thing that I thought about this already is that, like, I believe that talking about THYC, specifically saying this is, we can say that it's kind of relatable or dependable on TBTC itself, because one of the main assets that would back like THYC is TBTC. And as the way I see it, like the TBTC like kind of end game is to be like the main Bitcoin asset that people would use in order to bridge their Bitcoins to DeFi. And talking about that, like talking about this specifically saying, we are talking about a potential kind of trillion-dollar market, because talking about the future, talking about like how Bitcoin can increase its value and how people would want to get some use towards Bitcoin instead of just like holding it. Like people would like be able to, like, for example, earn passive income and so on. So they would be able to bridge it with the BTC trustless, in a trustless and in a permissionless way, in a decentralized manner. And they, like, one of the main use cases for that is to like mint THUST. So we are aiming for that. Like talking about like a ultimate end game is that like most of the people would want to get their some serve or some utilization to their Bitcoin. They would use like CBDC for that purpose in a decentralized manner. And the most secure and most like traditional way that they would secure their Bitcoins while they would keep the exposure to it would to mint THUSD. So they would keep their exposure to Bitcoin in an indirect way, while they would be able to mint THUSD in the process. So yeah, so this is pretty much like how I see it in a kind of
that's
end game.
interesting. Last question in this corner, and I also want to hear Jack Landon's take on the progression. But before we move on, Evandro, how do you feel about when you think about this uh, exposure of Bitcoin users, Bitcoin holders to DeFi? How do you feel about this growing ecosystem of building on Bitcoin? Will that be sort of a competing
Yeah, I would say
narrative there?
no, not at all. I believe that it sort of makes sense for me because it's the natural kind of pathway. Like people, I would say that it's arguable the vast majority of like people that are into crypto, they like learned about it through Bitcoin, or they are currently holding Bitcoin and so on. So a natural pathway for this kind of mechanics or existing dynamics is to how we can like serve, or how we can like provide some purpose for utilizing their Bitcoin. And a way that it is like growing a lot on DeFi is like to put some usage to the Bitcoin in, of course, in an indirect way, because people would have to bridge their Bitcoin into the DeFi in order to do that. But yeah, it's the natural pathway for that. And I see TBTC as a pivotal kind of player into this new market, because as you can see, for example, talking about Bob, which is a new layer on Ethereum, it basically uses like TBTC, of course, also WBTC into it, but also you would be able to pay, like, for example, gas with TBTC. And one thing that, of course, like I can't like publicly disclose, but we are talking about the possibility of having like THUSD, possibly. Of course, this is not like something concrete, but we are aiming to get like THUSD deployed on different layers, and Bob could be one of them. So in a very like kind of short term
Nice. We got some alpha.
perspective.
Amazing. Well, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Well, um, we are getting towards the end of the conversation, and I know Evandro needs to run. I want to give him the final word first, and then we'll wrap up with Jax. Uh, Evandro, just to wrap it up, for Threshold, for TBDC, for TUHD, THUSD, sorry. How do you feel this cycle, this next 12 to 18 months, how does it play out, and what should people be on the lookout for?
Talking about like Threshold USD specifically, saying that, yeah, like basically right now, as we have talked before, like we are aiming to get is the most like how yeah, like the main challenge right now is how we can get like THUSD the most available as possible. So we are working on like making it available in different layers. Also, in a different front, we are working to get like more incentives towards others protocol in order to have some like or to boost some liquidity into other protocols. So yeah, so basically like what we are looking forward to is basically to have in a few months from now like the THUSD more available for people. Right now, like as I mentioned, like we are working internally on like getting THUSD like the protocol itself available in different layers. So we are going it's very possible that we are going to deploy it in several different other layers, like to have like native THUSD in different, not only in mainnet, but also like, for example, in other layers, for example, Arbitrum, Bobs, and so on. So we are actively working toward that. And yeah, so, and also we can see like increasing volume going on through TBTC. So we are like closely looking at the existing TVL of TBTC growing a lot in the last like weeks. And yeah, like we are going like going forward, we are like looking for this trend to go on, to increase even more, and then we would be able to have like a very good position for THC in order to like make it available for people to mint it using their TBTC and so on. So yeah, this is what I wanted to say about it. Yeah, and thank you very much for
That's
the
awesome.
opportunity.
Thank you. And we're excited to onboard and use it. I did attempt it. I didn't get through it, but I'll try again. I'll definitely try again.
Yeah, like we are putting together a more like kind of expensive docs right now, so it's possible that it will get like available in 1 day or two. So yeah, like we are going to provide like a very expansive or descriptive kind of step by step, and yeah,
Yeah.
people will
For
be able
now,
to
it's
use it not only in testnet but also in
for now, I
mainnet
feel
and so
like
on.
all of those things are for enthusiasts. Like we just want to tinker with it. We want to get into it. Oh, it's not. Oh, it doesn't quite work. Ooh, let me try it. Let me see how I can make it not work. Or, we're all builders and we're all excited about trying each other's things. So, yeah, excited to see how it evolves, how it grows, and start playing with it in DeFi for sure. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Okay,
Cheers. Bye.
thank you. Bye bye.
Yes.
It was a pleasure.
Well,
Cheers.
I'm here. I'm here with
Right.
the Jacks, and I want to ask you kind of similar question. We are in the, I guess, at the end of the first act of the three-act structure of the current cycle. We are definitely not in the dead zone. We're growing and. Jack, how do you see Saokuru, and how do you see the industry, and what are you looking forward to for the next 12 to 18 months?
Sure. I mean, for us, I don't think I mentioned, but yeah, Sakura is a layer 2 protocol with no gas fee, right? So for us, we just been focusing on making the usability. I mean, we need to make things much more friendly for our users, especially Web2 users, right? So, I mean, stablecoin is one of those perfect example. If you want to use stablecoin on other chain, you still need to have gas fee, and people are just not going to understand gas fee. I mean, you can say that it's the same as transaction fee with the banks, right? But then sometimes because it fluctuates, sometimes it costs like $10, sometimes it costs $100 a cent. It's just not something that's friendly enough for regular people, and that's why we decided
How do
to
you do
remove
that?
it all completely, right? So now stablecoin are it's a delegate model, so we actually have gas
Right.
fee for security. It still needs to be there, right? So we absorb it, and then whoever build on our chain basically also help absorb that cost as well. But from the consumer perspective, they never have to deal with it, right? It's almost like using cash, because if you want to progress from people just handing cash to someone else without any fee, right? Or these days when you can use application like Sale, for example, you can send money to your friend with at no cost, right? When people use that when they come to Web3 with stablecoin and you start having to pay all this fee, right? Especially when it's not even the same currency, right? You have all this
Yes.
money, but you can't send
Paying.
because you don't have BNB, right? That just doesn't make sense to these users. So I mean, even with account abstraction, all these things, it really doesn't solve the problem all the way, and that's why I think removing gas fee is definitely part of that, right? So, and we are looking to apply this to many different scenarios, even Bitcoin as well. So we have the Satoshi peg token on our chain as well, right? The SATS token. So then maybe for the first time, people can actually use that to spend, like basically you're spending Bitcoin without gas fee, without transaction fee, right? And it's also very fast finality. So instead of send and then you have to wait for 10 minutes, or if you use Lightning, now it's much faster, but still it's not the kind of experience that people expect, right? So we try to see like what would it be like to use Bitcoin on our chain. Of course we're quite new, and SATS
A
token only
month,
been
yeah.
around for like I don't know, like a month now, right? So it'll be interesting to see. And again, like your previous question early on, like how stablecoin compete with each other, it really comes down to adoption, right? Because it doesn't matter to have the best stablecoin that's completely decentralized, but most people don't accept it, right? Then
Yeah.
you can't spend it. You have to swap to another stablecoin anyway, right? And I think that's definitely one thing. And the second thing, of course, is the some kind of features that go on top, like for example, like with Mountain Protocol USDM, right? You just hold on to it and you earn 5%. So now you are completely debanked. You don't need to go to any bank to earn any yield. You don't need to even go to any DeFi protocol to earn any yield. You just have USDM and you just keep earning every day, right? So I think these are some of the key features that might attract people, because if you want to become completely independent, low risk, right? Because the moment you start using DeFi protocol, of course, there's a risk with your approved. I mean, DeFi protocol will have access to your wallet and all these things. So there needs to be like that
Yes.
really, really safe way for me to come in, right? And many
Yeah.
people would just stay there, which is fun. And then like, more the adventurous type people, like I mean, all of us, right? That would try something else, maybe to get more yield than 5%, maybe 30% or whatever that we can get to. So I think, yeah, it really comes down to these two key things. I think it's really accessibility, adoption, and some specific key feature that like extra yield, for example, that will I think really
Yeah.
help
That's
certain
interesting.
stablecoin. Like
That what you were saying kind of just made me think about how we have just had a couple months ago Bitcoin ETF, which is sort of a centralization of Bitcoin. But we are onboarding a lot of people and familiarizing them with the asset, with this world. And I guess the hope is that over time, and now we have Ethereum ETF almost on our doorstep. Hopefully, starting it's gonna come online in within weeks, maybe months, and people will start buying Ethereum through ETFs, and people will start familiarizing themselves with that ecosystem and what it is, what it offers. But yes, it is a long path. Um, what are some of with L2 being with building an L2? What are some of the use cases? What are some of the applications that you're most excited about creating?
for us, I mean, the most fun part is probably games. I would think. I mean, about 70% of the projects coming on our chain
That's
this year will be
amazing.
games, and then about 10% will be more on the education type, like certification, and then the last 20% also is basically retail, right? So RWA, fashion, CRM, carbon credit, so all these different things, I think, right? I mean, in terms of the most exciting thing, I would say, if we can, I mean, there are certain cases that we might get some government level mandate as well, right, to switch completely. like ID certification, all that. So those are quite exciting in terms of number of users using our chain.
Do you mean any
But
specific government
yeah,
coming
for
on your
me,
chain?
I'm like,
ooh, we're getting a lot of
can't
alpha
mention which
today.
one,
Okay, that's
but
exciting.
potentially. Yeah. So like this past week, there's two countries. These are two smaller ones, and then the two larger
Wow.
ones with 100+ million people in the country, right? But they might switch some small things first. So it depends. There's definitely a lot of use cases that can really help. Like for example, in Indonesia, right? Because they are so afraid of not running out of food, right? Because they basically India stopped selling rice to them. So now people are kind of freaking out a little bit. It's like, hey, okay, what if we run out of food? So then now they're trying to incentivize and trying to find ways for farmers to be able to get access to funds so that they can farm, or if they don't have the land, they can just go and kind of borrow it, right? So in this case, you can actually tokenize livestock like cows and chickens, and then you allow people from anywhere to help fund them, for example, right? So like for example, for cows, you can earn about 40% yield after about 6 to 8 months. So now if you don't have money to buy a cow, what do? Right? You basically say, hey, anyone can give me money, crowdfund, and you make it more seamless. You can use NFT, for example, like ERC-1155. You can tokenize it, and then even people from, let's say, Venezuela can jump in, right? Because over there they earn like $20 a month, and now all of a sudden, if you can earn that $20 just by help funding this farmer, then you have money for your living expenses. So it allows these things. It technically could be done by fiat as well, but what happens here is it's more transparent, right? And it's also cheaper. Let's say if they do an on chain for payout, even though it's fractions of dollars sometimes, there's still no gas fee, right? And then the cross-border part is actually what make it more interesting as well, because now I can help invest into all these farmers in Indonesia, but I need to live there, right? Which normally you can't really do if you're in the fiat system, for example. So there's all these very interesting use cases that I hope that will actually go live this year, right? There's a lot of talk, and right now livestock is one of those areas where it's not regulated, and that's why people are interested. But once it becomes regulated, this scheme may not work either. So, it's an opportunity risk, but
that's so interesting.
So it's all opportunity risk.
Farming is notoriously risky business, and so that's an interesting one for it to be right there.
Yeah, there's way to tokenize these livestock to lower the risk, basically, right? You just have to think, because if you just tokenize single cow, if the cow dies, you lose everything.
That's amazing.
So you just
well,
have to
tokenized cows. How did we? 10 years ago, we did not think about that. That's amazing. Well, Jack, Landon, what are you looking forward to in the next 12 to 18 months with Taffy?
My answer is not going to be anywhere near as elaborate as Jack's, I don't think.
That's fine. We need to wrap up anyway.
Yeah, true. I'm interested in just interesting time, ways that you can use time to sort of flip finance on its head. I've seen a few interesting things recently. Things like sort of front loading your interest in a stake. So you stake a token, you get sort of all the interest up front, and you keep your tokens in there, and then in a year's time you take it out. Just things like that. I think just like interesting game mechanics I'm keen for.
That's awesome. And so you're going to be potentially integrating something like that on Taffy protocol?
Potentially. I'm not sure what we can and can't say, so I'm not sure yet.
Got it. Okay. Well, we're getting a lot of hints. We're getting a lot of hints today. That's really fun. Which means we're building a lot, and that a lot is going on, which is, I guess, the main narrative for the next 12 months. A lot's going to be happening, and we're here for it. And it's been a real pleasure to chat with you about stablecoins and tokenized cows. I'm gonna really enjoy this one. Well, thank you so much, guys, and I hope to have you on another time.
Sweet. Thanks, Sasha.
All right. Cheers.
Yeah. Thanks for having.
Cheers.
That was hell of a fun chat. Did not expect cows to get into this, but hey, you never know. Crypto's everywhere. For more of these conversations, follow the engine all over the place on YouTube, in your favorite podcatcher, on all the social media, Twitter, Farcaster, LinkedIn. But don't just follow. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about stablecoins. What do you think about this whole idea of progressing from more centralized forms and even CBDC to more decentralized ones? Would love to hear what you guys think. Check out Skylab, fill out the form and join the community. Check out Threshold.network and Taco, their access control plugin. Check out Build Cities, mint your dream NFT. Check out their schedule of events and go attend. It's really fun. All the links are in the description. And that's our show for today. Struggle well, fellow builder. You can do it. Cheers.